The next time someone gives you a genuine compliment and you immediately say, "Oh, it wasn't that good. I just got lucky. Anyone could have done it." Pause for a second. Because in that moment, you looked at someone being completely sincere with you and told them they were wrong. Not out loud, not intentionally, but you took their honest observation and dismissed it. That is not humility. It is something more complicated. And most people who do it have no idea why they cannot simply say, "Thank you."
Your brain spends years building a picture of who you are, not just your appearance, your abilities, your worth, your place in a room. Psychologists call this your self-concept. And once your brain has built that picture, it works hard to keep it consistent. Imagine someone who has quietly believed for years, "I am just average." Then another person says, "You are incredibly talented." Those two ideas do not match. Your brain notices the conflict immediately. And rather than rewriting its entire picture of who you are, it finds it easier to reject the new information. They're just being nice. They don't really mean it. They're exaggerating. Dismissing the compliment feels safer than rebuilding your identity. Because rebuilding an identity is slow, uncomfortable work. And your brain is always looking for the shortcut. There is another reason this happens. Your brain is constantly comparing what it expects with what actually happens. Neuroscientists sometimes call this prediction error. When reality matches your expectations, your brain stays comfortable. But when someone describes you in a way that clashes with the story already inside your head, your brain treats that mismatch like a problem. And problems make the brain search for the fastest solution. Changing your identity could take months. Rejecting the compliment takes seconds. So your brain quietly chooses the easier option. Not because the compliment is false, but because consistency often feels safer than change. Sometimes the discomfort has nothing to do with disbelief. You heard the compliment. You even believed it for a moment. Then a quieter thought arrived. What if I can't do it again? What if next time I disappoint them? What if they find out I'm not as good as they think? The compliment stopped being a gift. It became a standard you now have to maintain. Suddenly, being praised feels like being watched, not appreciated, observed. Your brain is no longer thinking about what was said. It is calculating how far you could fall from this new height. And the simplest way to avoid that fall is to reject the height entirely. Oh, it wasn't that impressive. Problem solved. Except it wasn't. For many people, the discomfort around compliments started much earlier than they realize. Maybe every time you were proud of yourself, someone said, "Don't get arrogant, stay humble, don't show off." They probably meant well. Humility is a real virtue. But what your brain quietly learned alongside it was an unusual association. Receiving praise began to feel linked with danger, not because compliments were bad, but because accepting them openly carried a social risk. You might be seen as arrogant. You might make someone uncomfortable. You might take up too much space. Years later, someone says, "You did something remarkable." And without knowing exactly why, you immediately make it smaller. "It was nothing. I had a lot of help. I just got lucky." The response is automatic because it has been rehearsed, quietly, unconsciously, for years. You are not being humble in that moment. You are following a rule your brain learned long ago, a rule that once kept things safe, but now simply keeps things small.
There is one more layer. A compliment draws attention toward you. Suddenly, you are aware of being seen, not in a neutral way, in an evaluating way. Did I really deserve that? Are they waiting to see if I live up to it? Is everyone thinking the same thing? Your brain mistakes appreciation for scrutiny. So instead of staying in the moment, you try to exit it. You deflect. You laugh it off. You shrink. Not because the compliment was wrong, but because being seen, even kindly, activates something old. Something that learned to be careful when attention arrived. Here is what most people never consider. When you dismiss a genuine compliment, you are not protecting your humility. You're protecting your comfort. And there is a cost to that protection. Every time you reject what someone sincerely noticed, you make it slightly harder for your brain to believe good things about itself. You rehearse the rejection. You practice the smallness. You confirm the story that you are less than what others see. Your brain would rather believe a story it has repeated for 20 years than a compliment it heard 20 seconds ago. That is how powerful our internal narratives become. The goal is not to suddenly believe every compliment without question. The goal is simply to pause before the automatic dismissal, to notice the reflex, to ask yourself, is this humility or is this habit?
Because accepting kindness is not arrogance. It does not mean you think you are perfect. It does not mean you are claiming more than you earned. It simply means you are willing to let something good be true. Sometimes the hardest part about receiving a compliment is not believing the other person. It is allowing yourself to become the person they already see. Your mind has its own reasons for doing the things it does. Sometimes those patterns protect you. Sometimes they make life feel harder. But understanding them is where change begins. If this video made you see your mind a little differently, subscribe to Sycho Decode for more science-based psychology videos. And I'd love to hear from you. Have you experienced this too? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this helpful, leave a like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. See you in the next one.